The Compendium Maleficarum by Francesco Maria Guazzo. Book 3, Chapter 4, Section 12. Of the virtue of salt, bread, wax, and the blessed Agnus Dei. At Trapani, in the year 1585, there was a householder in whose house it was reported that certain voices had been heard for some months. And this was a familiar demon who in various ways tried to delude men. He would hurl great stones, but without wounding anyone's head, and would cast down the household vessels from on high without breaking them. And when a boy of the house was wont to sing hymns, the demon trolled out lascivious songs in the hearing of all to the accompaniment of a harp, and openly boasted that he was a demon. When the master of the house and his wife were starting on their business to a certain town, the demon attached himself to their company, and when the man was drenched with rain and was coming back, the evil spirit went before, shouting on his way, and began to warn the servants to build a fire, for the master was at the door, soaked through with rain. But so soon as the master of the house understood how he was being deluded, he threatened the demon that he would fetch a priest to drive him from his house, and the demon began to exclaim that he must not do this, and threatened him with his enmity and hatred, saying that he would keep himself hidden for as long as the priest should be in the house. Nevertheless, the master went to a priest and told him all that had happened, and even changed his house in order to free himself of that haunting. But the priest, fearing to arouse the curiosity of the ignorant multitude who would flock thither to see what would happen, decided not to go with him. Only he advised him and all his household to cleanse their souls by a general confession, and strengthen themselves with the heavenly bread, and to take care that none of the servants or anyone else should fall into conversation with the enemy, nor seek to know from him what was hidden, as they had done, but rather they were to laugh at anything he said and despise it as coming from the father of lies. They all promised to do so, and the priest gave them an image of the celestial Lamb in blessed wax to hang by a thread round the necks of those who were chiefly troubled by the demon. The demon was in terror of that wax and threatened that, if they did not throw it away, he would twist their necks and kill them. But they followed the sage counsel and advice of the priest and gave him no answer, but fortified themselves against the enemy with the weapons of the sacraments, and were easily saved from his guile and molestation. The country of Treves is even now infested with witches, one of whom, with her spells and charms, enticed a boy about 8 years of age to that place where, under the cover of darkness and night, they performed their execrable games. The boy was given his part to play, for while the rest joined hands and danced, he beat the measure upon the tabor. Neither was he a looker-on at their dances and games only, but often witnessed the magic with which they do hurt the human bodies and the fruits of the earth. The archbishop ordered the boy to be kept in custody at his palace and to be taught the catechism, of which he was quite ignorant. He had an Agnus Dei hung round his neck, and a demon came to him at night and scolded him bitterly for having led himself to be deceived so easily, and ordered him to throw away that waxen image if he did not wish to be beaten. The boy, in terror, obeyed. And at once the demon, since the object of his fear had been removed, carried him to the town walls and placed him upon a black goat, and took him in a moment to the most obscene spots haunted and infested by witches. After he had remained some time with the witches, he was again restored to the palace, with the cord broken from which the waxen image had hung. At the request of the archbishop and the whole city, the boy was sent to a house of the Jesuits, and kept till he should learn what was necessary to the Christian discipline, so that he might afterwards return to the palace piously fortified by the sacraments and free from the snares of demons. And so finally this came to pass, although it is said that after some years he relapsed and paid the penalty of his crime. In 1586, in the same district, there was a young peasant, less than 15 years old, of very keen intelligence. He had been more than once to the hellish place where men mingled with women, and young with old, with the demon presiding in feasting at night with all the sense of shame forgotten. But he had not yet renounced God and the Mother of God, nor had pronounced after the demon the execrable prayers. Only he had eaten the brain of a cat in his food when the moon was waning, and felt that his own brain had become smaller. He entered the city of Treves, which he had never seen before, doubtless being lured to his punishment by the same hand that had led him to the sin of witchcraft, and was taken as possessed into the prince's palace to be guarded apart, that the demon might be driven from him. But the demon gave him no rest at night, beating him and tearing the Agnus Dei from his neck. The archbishop then determined to send him to the college of the Jesuits, but even there the poor boy had no peace until his cubicle was solemnly exorcised. It will be worthwhile to record some of his statements, for he told the bishop as follows: "While we were holding our Sabbat, there was one of your retainers who boasted that on such and such a night he had poured a poisoned drink into you as you slept, having found the way open to you because you had imprudently left your Agnus Dei on the table when you went to bed. And if the cup had been a little larger, you would not have escaped death." And indeed the bishop said that he had been so ill after that particular night that he had been forced to keep his bed for some days. When this statement did not convince the great company of nobles who were present, the boy said to the burgomaster of the city, "And our witches have attacked you twice, but they were repulsed by that little locket which you always wear, containing 2 images and some consecrated object." He meant the Agnus Dei. The burgomaster admitted that he always wore these holy things. Another man possessed by a demon appeared more like a snarling, barking dog than a reasoning and speaking man. He was brought from Burgundy to us, and with great difficulty forced into the church, and he did not cease to act like a dog until an Agnus Dei was put about his neck. Then at last he grew quiet, and behaved like a man again, and purged his soul with the healing grace of confession. The same amulet similarly benefited another who labored under the same affliction. In the province of Innsbruck, an apt medicine for the gravest maladies is much in use, and the terrors of the devil are counteracted in many places by the use of sacred amulets. Many incidents are told in proof of this. One man asserted that he was destined to hell because of his crimes, and in his convulsions invoked the devil, making it clear by his behavior to the panic-stricken bystanders that the fiend had appeared to him. But the man was cured, for a priest soothed him at first with gentle words, and so led him to make his confession, having given him an Agnus Dei to place devoutly in his bosom. Another man had in time past pledged his soul and body to the terrible snatcher of souls, and as his time was at hand, the unhappy wretch went to a priest and sought his advice, with trembling lips and uneasy eyes. In a sudden panic he cried out, "Help! Father, make haste to help a poor wretch with some holy thing." The priest asked what was the matter, and he answered, "The enemy is standing at the door waiting for me to come out, and looking threateningly at me because of my broken vow." This man also was cured by the same remedy. The following story is also not unknown. A certain peasant heard that there were in Innsbruck men who had a sure medicine to drive away witchcraft and delusions, so he came to them for the medicine against the devil, for so he called it. When asked what he meant by a medicine, he answered, "I do not know. I only know what I have heard. By whatever it is something that drives the devil away." So he was given a piece of blessed wax, and soon after found great benefit from it, so that now whenever a Jesuit father goes through that town, he needs more than 70 pieces of blessed wax to satisfy their clamorous requirements. About the same time, at Avignon, A woman was tormented by an evil spirit, and a friend advised her to go to a priest, and meanwhile he gave her parents an Agnus Dei, which they sewed in her garment unbeknownst to her. She either forgot this advice or put off going, and she was seized through the window by 4 seeming cats and carried up on to the roof of the house. Then she heard a human voice threatening to hurl her down unless she threw away the waxen image which she had in her clothes. She understood what that must be, and recognized that they were evil counselors. Therefore, with great courage, she refused to do so, and at once turned to her prayers, and was left perched upon the roof. For there her husband, roused by her cries, found her. At Treves, in the year 1590, a young man received a great wrong involving much loss at the hands of those from whom he should least have expected it, and he resented this more than was becoming to a Christian. Black with grief and brooding immoderately, as he was walking alone in the twilight, he met a demon who, seeing his chance, was not slow to take it. He was in the form of a noble man, very dark, and at first caused the young man some terror, but he greeted him and was so removed his fear, and asked him the cause of his sorrow. The young man explained what was the matter, and the demon told him that by himself he had no hope of recovering his money, since it had fallen into the hands of very powerful persons, but if he would follow him, he would very easily recover everything. The young man answered him, "I have been imposed upon by men whom I know, by my friends. Shall I then put my trust in a stranger, whom I now see for the first time? Good God!" At these last words, the man-monster vanished into the air like lightning. On the next day, at the same time as the young man was pondering the same thoughts, there appeared to him a woman of noble mien, who begged him to retire with her for a short time. But the young man refused and kept resisting her importunate persuasions, until she advised him to draw his sword from the bedside and pierce the wall with it. He refused at first, but at last, not knowing what he did, for he was nearly mad with worry, he obeyed, and as he struck the wall, he cried, "God turn it to good." This again drove off the second demon like lightning, but the demon came a third time, for his moody anxiety was deeply implanted in the man's mind, and the temper would not leave him alone, and took the form of a woman in the flower of life and of great beauty, who both by word and gesture lasciviously invited him to sin. She did not stop short at words, but forcibly tried to drag him to her. The young man cried aloud for help, and when the servants ran quickly to him, that wicked apparition vanished, and the man was found utterly spent and nearly dying. When he was asked the reason of his fear and his screams, he could not even open his mouth, but lay with glazing eyes like a dead man, having lost his voice through fright. He was therefore placed upon a bed and tended, and recovered his courage as soon as he was sprinkled with holy water. And the next day he told the whole story, and at the advice of a priest fortified himself with waxen images consecrated by the sacred mysteries, and other weapons feared by the devil, and in this way so frightened his enemy that he ceased to appear to him. But sometimes it happens, with God's permission, that this remedy is of no avail, especially when God has willed to gain a more glorious victory by some other means, as for example by the bare name of Jesus or of Mary. This was proved by what happened in Augsburg in the year 1591, where the wearing of consecrated wax stamped with the image of the Lamb was for many a present remedy against the horrid monsters of the devil and his nightly terrors. But to one man the demon appeared openly, as if in contempt, and bribed him with much money to commit a crime, having broken the cord by which the disc hung and thrown away the Agnus Dei. Yet the man was saved when he called upon the names of Jesus and Mary. In the year 1589, there was a woman who had written a deed with her own blood and vowed herself to the devil. After she had repented of this, the demon often showed her the deed, but she trusted in the protection of the divine Lamb with whose image she had fortified her breast, and ordered him to return to her handwriting. At last she saw it fall at her feet, burned to glowing ashes. For more in the Sources of Sophiurgy series, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified of the next installment. I'm Ignotus Amicus. Ave Maria.